which PlayStation franchises will make the jump to PS5?
And which ones won't?
Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, Mr.
Saul Bridges, bringing you lucky episode 67. How you been, Brett?
I have been good. Apparently, I just did the name card thing again. But hey, you know what? That's if you're watching us on YouTube, you just get to see the stuff twice. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been mostly good. I know you've had a pretty busy work week, and then this week was weird because Wednesday completely threw my entire life off. You know, Wednesday was July 4th, so we were off work, and it felt like my whole day was like, it's the weekend, and then but my brain was obviously like, no, it's
not the weekend.
So it was very odd, and then ended up going back to work, and it just felt weird, and half the people are gone from my work anyway, and then I have to stay home yesterday to take care of Grandpa. So it's been a very odd week. Upside is that while staying home to take care of Grandpa, I did get a little more games in.
There you go.
But we are Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. If you are just now joining us for the first time, you can find us every Monday on YouTube in video format. If you like what we're doing there, subscribe or consider subscribing. Like the video if you like what we're doing here, and of course, keep your eye out for a new episode comes out every Monday. And then, of course, we have our bonus episodes like the reader mail that we just recently put up for June, where we do monthly, where we take the previous month's reader mail that we did not get to in our standard episodes, compile them all into one episode that we just sit down and hash out. That way, no question gets left behind. It's like a much better version of the no student gets left behind movement that happened. Yeah, if you find us on there, consider subscribing. If you also want to listen to us on podcast services, you can do so. They come up at the same time, which is 10 a.m. PST and 12 p.m. CST. It is late. I'm tired, so
it's very late.
Let's see. If you listen to us on podcast services, consider giving us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Gets our numbers up there so people can find us a little bit easier. And you can also find us on Patreon, where if you want to help support us, you can do so by giving us $1, $2, $5, any way you want. You can join our Discord and get a nice, pretty name color for being a patron, which we are looking into. So don't kill us yet, Blake. I don't know why it's working on some and not on others. We're going to have to probably figure it out.
I think it was the email thing.
I'm not sure, but we will figure that out, and I will get with you, Blake, a little bit further on that because I'm more curious that we don't lie to people. That said, you can normally find us on Twitter at Triangle SQRD or the newly found Facebook group, which we have a new guy named Matt. Don't know the last name off the top of my head because I just saw it a couple minutes ago, so you can forgive me for that. But hey, welcome to the Facebook group, and thanks for being a listener. Saul, what have you been playing this week with the time that you've had, and what are you wanting to play that you've not had time for? There we go. Switch that question up.
Yeah, that's a weird question. Let's see. So only really 3 games this week. And I know I'd normally say that and then I end up listing more, but really it's only been 3. It's been Kingdom Hearts 1 and Resident Evil, Rainbow Six Siege, and then the
Resident Evil Siege.
I don't know. I'm tired. I said Octopath Traveler demo, which I haven't played yet this week, but I have played Hollow Knight. So Hollow Knight, Rainbow Six Siege, and Kingdom Hearts 1.
Hollow Knight looks so freaking cool, man. I'm so mad that it's not out on consoles yet, but that's okay.
So freaking good.
I will give it time because I know. Well, I say not on consoles, on consoles that I have because it's on Switch. It looks really good though, and I'm glad that you're saying it's as long as it is. And then Corey posted a screenshot. The art style looks just so sick to me. I don't know what it is. It's like a really simple but striking art style, and the game looks really fun. So.
Yeah, like it's that perfect combination of hard and just it fills you with wonder as you play. Like what's over here? You drop down into like a path, I would say, and there's like 4 different ways to leave that room that you're in, and they all have a purpose to them. So
and you actually have the urge to want to go back and be like, well, what was down another path?
Yeah, you can buy these little pins that you can mark your map with, and that's what I've been doing. So I mark my map on things that I can't. Like I got to an area that's pitch black. And I'm like, how do I get through this? So, like, I know that somewhere along the way, I'm going to pick up a lantern or something or a light, and I'm going to be able to go back through.
And how many hours do you think you're into this game?
Probably 30.
God.
Yeah.
And there's still more to it.
Yeah, there's still more to it.
Do you think the game will make its way to other consoles and it's just a limited time exclusive for Switch, or do you think it's actually going to be a straight-up Switch game?
I'll do the same thing I did with Shovel Knight, and I bought it on Nintendo 3DS when it first came out, and then I bought it back on Vita, and it was cross-buy with everything. So I'll do the same thing. I'll buy it on PS4 again.
Okay.
But yeah, kind of slow week. Got to Hollow Bastion and Kingdom Hearts 1 today. And I know that
initial Hollow Bastion though, right?
Yeah, initial Hollow Bastion.
Gotcha.
And then I know that area is. I hate that area so much.
I don't hate it.
I hate it.
You end up coming back to it though. It's one of those things where you leave, come back, and
I'm glad too because for those that don't, I'm not going to really say much in terms of spoiler, but a really cool cutscene happens in which you pretty much just you don't have any strength.
It's incredibly short lived though.
Yeah, no,
thankfully,
I know. It's like 45 minutes total to get through that area with Beast.
I don't
what is
even
that character's name? Why is it Beast?
It's Beast, but
that's what I thought.
Not even that long. I don't want to say too much because there's actually quite a few people playing that game for the first time.
Well, I haven't
because
played
of 3
it
hyping everybody
in
up
so long, so that's what I remember it being. It also could be I was a really dumb kid and I couldn't figure out how to glide on those glaciers properly. But Brett, what have you been playing?
I've also been playing Kingdom Hearts 1. I am grinding through Hollow Bastion. I've already done everything that Hollow Bastion has. I'm just grinding it for the level because I'm playing on Proud Mode. And I'm trying to work my way through the platinum. My only thing there is that the platinum list for that game, the trophy list, is set up in such a way that it's one of those lists that makes you, if you're going to work towards the platinum, you're almost going to have to make yourself hate the game to get it. And I don't know that I can really completely do it all right now, but I'm going to do as much as I can. And then whenever I naturally get tired of it, I'm just going to quit. I mean, I've played the game so many times that I don't owe it anything. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to play it. The thing I'm doing right now is this leveling up as much as I can, trying to do all of the extra bosses, the secret bosses like Kurt Zisa, the Phantom,
Frost Titan,
Frost Titan, and of course Sephiroth and Unknown.
They didn't change,
or the Unknown Man, or whatever it is.
They didn't change any of these optional bosses in the 1.5 remix, did they?
Now, what do you mean? Like, did they change the way they act?
Yeah.
I mean, so
Frost Titan, you still hit his back or whatever, his shards.
I mean, yeah, they all act the same. The only thing that's different this time around is that Final Mix, of course, brings in the Unknown Man, which I'm not going to get into.
I don't even know who that is because I didn't know nothing about Final Mix when I was younger.
Yeah, because Final Mix didn't come out over here. That said, though,
I'm about to go look.
As soon as you see his weapon, you'll know who it is, or you should. And it makes a lot of sense with the story. Anyway, it's just something that they added in retroactively because it was like, oh, okay, it all makes sense. That said, though, I'm trying, and I've never fought him in general. Actually, I didn't even fight him on PlayStation 3 whenever I rebeat the game on there. But I also didn't do any extra run. I just beat the game for the joy of playing the story. So I'll see. I don't necessarily know how hard he is, so I don't know if he's to the point where I won't easily be able to beat him on Proud Mode. To be fair, I'm also just trying to get to level 100 to make all of this as easy as possible, partially because Leaf Bracer doesn't unlock until, like, what did I say, 92 or some crap? 69. Very late, it felt like.
Well, I was hoping for a good surprise, and it just spoiled right in the name of the title.
Yeah, that
Congratulations.
Just completely ruined everything. That said, though, I've also played the summer sales going on, or the mid-year sales going on in the PlayStation Store right now. So I picked up a couple games I've been keeping an eye out on. One of them is Air Memories of Old, which is like a very rhyme-style game from what I can gather from what they show, where it's like an exploration game where you there's floating islands and you jump off and you play as a female protagonist and turn into an eagle and fly between these islands and find stuff. Looks really cool. Has a cool art style that's also reminiscent of rhyme, sadly. But I like the art style, so I'm not complaining. I haven't played it yet, but I did buy it. I bought Darksiders 1, even though I already have it on disc, because it was $1.99, and this would be one of the few times that I'm actually going to go trade in my physical copy for like $7 that it's worth and just get something else with it. I say this, though, if you do not have Darksiders 2, which was free on PS Plus a while back, and you've not played Darksiders 1, either of them, buy them now on sale and give them a try, because Darksiders 3 looks like it's going to be really good. I hope it's really good. They are very interesting games, and of course, you won't want to go into 3 without having any clue of what you're doing in the franchise. So buy them now while they're incredibly cheap. Support the devs who did that if you even have the smallest inkling of interest towards them. And of course, that would hopefully build up some kind of excitement for Darksiders 3 so that it does well, because of them taking the risk and making that game is really cool, and I'm glad to see them doing that. I think it'll be a good game regardless of what happens. I hope it's a great game like Darksiders 2 was. But I also played the other game that I bought on the store sale was Jotun, which is the game that is made by the same developer as Sundered, which is Lotus Games, or something like that. It's Lotus something. And it has the same hand-drawn art style. It's really cool. And it's got a different, Sundered was like a Metroidvania side-scroller style.
Right.
This one's like a top-down, third-person isometric view, and it moves around on like a flat plane. It's very interesting, though. It's really fun. It's challenging in fun ways and good ways. I think so far I like Sundered better, but this game is really cool. And right now it's $5. So if it's even something that loosely interests you, it's cool seeing all the things after playing God of War and getting a lot of Norse mythology that way, seeing them referenced in different ways on here. So I'm enjoying that. I don't think I've played anything else. I played a little bit of Crash Bandicoot because my sister was over and she was like freaking out that she didn't even know they remade it. So I played a little bit of that. I think that's about it.
It'd be cool to persuade you furthermore to get a Switch. That game apparently performs really, really well on the Switch in handheld mode. So like, it'd be super cool to
play
have
it anywhere.
In the bed,
yeah, I mean, I'll give it that. It actually is a really good game. Play level bites on the go. That's actually the way that the game is designed. That old school like level by level thing, since they couldn't do one big open area, is actually great for their handheld use.
It is.
So I mean,
very
that's cool.
Easy start and stop. So now typically we would transition into the drop, but I hate to inform you all, including Mr. Drop, to the hop. In Discord. By the way, you guys should join our Discord. It's super fun and very chill. We have like 5 topics going on right now, maybe 6. We have basically a trophy boost in, Dark Souls discussion, PS Plus pals, community topics and stuff like that.
The community topics are cool. There's something that we're doing. We're just letting community members who come up with any ideas. So far, it's been like top 20 list of different things. It's been kind of fun, actually. But yeah, there's just any kind of community thing where y'all hop in. People who are part of the Discord for a while want to come in and share thoughts about anything with each other. They're just community curated topics, which is cool to me.
What?
But, Saul, where were you going with that? Sorry to kind of steal for a second.
Join our Discord for some fun. But we normally drop into the hop, and this week we're not going to hop into the drop at all because there is none yet again. So I have failed you all. I am sorry. This is like week 3 that they have yet to upload a PSN blog for the drop.
So it's the second week in a row, but it's...
No, E3 after E3 this week, 3 weeks.
But not in a row, right? There was one in between?
Well, yeah, I think there was one in between.
Okay,
actually,
that makes
right.
sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But... So I guess we'll just go ahead and go into the news, which this is not exactly PlayStation related, but apparently Warframe was announced for the Switch.
That's cool.
That's really cool. So
not surprising, honestly. The game needs to be as many places as it can be for it to continue to do as well as it's been doing. So I mean, that's cool. Good for them.
I'm gonna hop on that. But yeah, why don't you hop on the news, good sir, and then we're gonna hop into our reader mail.
Well, look at that. There's actually news this week, and some of it is very, very crazy. To start things off, though, Sony originally planned to close the Gravity Rush 2 servers last year. I'm sure everybody remembers that. There was a online campaign to keep the servers up, and they ended up succeeding in that. And Sony agreed to extend the date to the 18th of this month, which is July. So July 18th, 2018. Now a new campaign is starting again to try and push the date further once more. I'm curious to see if it will get as much traction in such a short period of time to extend it again or not.
What is that? From the day this episode comes out, that's 9 days.
Oh, man, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see if it actually holds out or not, but... Here's the thing. Don't get me wrong. While I wish it would stay up because it is a big part of the game, and it's actually, I mean, why push to have an online segment in the game if you're going to try and kill it within the first year that the game releases, which is exactly what happened originally. They were trying to close it within the same year that the game came out, which is just ultimately unacceptable.
Yeah.
Now, what they've done by pushing it and showing that they are listening to fan feedback is cool. But they've already done the push once. I think it's hard for them to justify the cost of keeping the servers up longer. Unless there's a very big vocal outcry of people or they see some kind of activity. Because, of course, Sony is in a position where right now, if they can spend a very small amount of money to keep good, PR, if they can keep good PR off of something that costs them very minimal amounts of money, it's something that wouldn't hurt them right now. I mean, it's not necessarily that they have to have it, but I think it would be a good thing to counter some of the recent negative PR that people are trying to spin their way. And some of it maybe has a point of being spun that way. But we've talked about that ad nauseum, so we're not going to keep going. But that was interesting. Next thing up, though, is after an announcement of a mobile game titled Dead Island Survivors, fans questioned publisher Deep Silver about the 2014 announced Dead Island 2. They have come out and said that the game is still in development, surprisingly, with the mobile game just being a spinoff. What I thought was interesting about this, and I knew this, but I hadn't really thought about it, the developer who's developing this is Sumo Digital. And now, of course, this is very highly likely a different team. This is the same developer nonetheless that is also seen multiple delays with Crackdown 3.
Yep.
Now here's the thing about Crackdown 3, they are not the only developer, they are assisting development to two other studios. So how heavy their hand is in it, nobody knows, but anytime that you see one studio's name attributed with a bunch of delayed titles. It just kind of is. I mean, and what's funny is I've played a few Sumo Digital games that are really good, so it sucks to see that this is like their place now, but if that's where it's going to be, that's where it's going to be. Interesting to see the game still being made, because it seems like every game that was announced in 2014 and 2013 is still apparently being made. We know that with Deep Down, Capcom is apparently still making it in some form or fashion, or has at least some intent to continue making it. Speaking of Warframe, as you were, good sir, Warframe received The Sacrifice, the story-centric update diving deeper into the game's ongoing narrative on consoles recently, and has a promotion running for some decorations and a 3-day affinity booster, which I don't know what the hell that is. But for players, that ends July 20th at 11:59. I think the code is Old Friend, which is pretty clever, so good for them. Oh, yeah, you watching that old...
Dude, level 1, critical, no damage, no limit, no summons, no drives.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to watch that when we're done here.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts fans will know this is absolutely
Lingering
ridiculous.
Wills is
yeah, it's the boss.
I never fought him, but I've heard things and I've seen videos. Now Sephiroth, on the other hand,
the hardest boss. I'm kidding. I promise I've played Kingdom Hearts. He's not the hardest. Insomniac have confirmed that Venom will not be in Insomniac's upcoming Spider-Man game for the PS4. People were curious after, of course, Sony is making the Venom movie, and, of course, Sony is dealing with some kind of a deal with Marvel over this game. It would have potentially made sense, but them not doing it is fine. The only thing is that this could come back to bite them, where they actually could stand to make some money by making a Venom costume, even if it's just to be stupid.
If they did a symbiote spider costume for like $2, I'd probably buy it.
Exactly, that's my point though. And by saying that Venom won't be in the game at all, it makes it sound like
they said Venom won't be, but the symbiote may.
That is a good point. So anything's possible. Saul, this one was cool, and we originally were talking about it, so that's why I decided to go ahead and put it in here. And of course, it was a rumor that is now proven true. But RPG Maker MV has finally been officially announced after the pre-E3 leak that we talked about. It will be coming sometime in 2019, which is surprising. Originally, I think the leaks called for this year, right? They may have decided to move because of
this year,
the heavy release schedule that we're seeing at the end of the year. But no solid window was announced outside of 2019. Their motto, though, or their tagline, one of the taglines they're using after Saul's questioning of how it would be handled from the game standpoint, is make, upload, and play, which sounds a lot like create, play, share, or whatever, play, create, share, which was the Little Big Planet tag. But you can play games by people who made these without owning the game. So that's cool. That's the first good bit of information. And the way that you do this is that there's a third-party app on PlayStation and all the other consoles that is called, let's see, I put it down here. I think it's Maker MV Player. And you download it, and you can play any game that's been published by people on there. Now, what I'm curious about is how you have to go about downloading them. Will you just go there and they'll be curated? Because that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Because one of the biggest things is that the original, I was looking into this too, because I remember the originals being hard. When it came on PC, right, everybody just had to download games, and you never knew what games were actually good. There was no way to rate them. You just had to hope and find that there were people talking good about them on forums.
And spend so much time doing that. Because you download a game, bad, discard.
Whereas if they do the Little Big Planet take, which is get all the levels onto one list that you can upload to, it goes to, and then players can rate and curate, and they can have levels that are like community picked or whatever that go up, and are like even developer picked, like Media Molecule did, where it was like, oh, these are the biggest games or the biggest levels that people have made, our series of levels. I think that's cool, but I think that's the biggest thing is that, yes, while Little Big Planet has the downside of you having to own Little Big Planet to play the levels, and Dreams would reasonably, I think it's reasonable to assume that it would be the same way. You have to have Dreams to play these games. I think it's cool that they are doing something to where you can just download it free and play the game separately. It makes it more sense for the people who want to dump their time into this to do it.
I hope that this is across all consoles. Was that confirmed? So is this across
I don't
Switch?
know. The only you would imagine it would be, right? Because they're all the same art assets.
Because I'm definitely going to get the game for Switch, depending on how in-depth I can get on PS4 with Sony and their whole you can't use external assets thing.
Well, but nobody can use external assets on this, apparently. There's well, unless you're on PC, obviously.
Yeah.
But across the board, and the game's been out on PC since 2015.
That's kind of surprising for Microsoft with
I think part of it's just coming to
Bethesda
making
using
sure
that.
the game. See, that might be part of it. And that's something we need to look into. It might be in an effort to make sure that any game made can be played across every console, and all your console would be doing would be taking it in, subbing it out with the textures that it has in its game, since they are the same art assets and just maybe possibly different rendering. Though I would imagine that the game probably just doesn't run that crazily anyway on any of the consoles. It's who knows, we'll see. But it's not like they're making really really complex games. So for people who are interested in the idea of RPG Maker and making games on your own, similar to what Dreams is trying to do, trying to give you an engine without having to know how to code, I think it's an interesting idea. So I also think that Dreams looks really cool, though, and I know some people are thinking Dreams will fail, and Dreams very well could fail, and I'm not saying that it won't. I am just excited at the possibility of what it can do. Speaking of Insomniac a little bit ago, a recent post on Reset Era saw Insomniac confirm that Ratchet & Clank PS4 is their most successful game of all time. Here's what I thought. It was interesting. No metric for that success was given, so we don't know if it's actually their best-selling game, if it's the game they've made the most money on based on the budget they put into it,
Right.
if it's been rated the highest, which I don't know. I guess we could go in and check and see. I think it received an 85, if I remember right, on Metacritic, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
So it could be their highest rated game, though I don't think it is. But yeah, who knows? Because Fuse or whatever ended up actually being called. I can't remember the actual name. That was the one game when they finally came off and were like, we're going to go do our own games. I think EA published it. It didn't do very well. It actually did very poorly. And then, of course, we didn't see Sunset Overdrive didn't perform very strongly. I think that there's an obvious. Ratchet & Clank seems like it would actually be a really easy answer for their most successful game from a sales standpoint. But here's what I do think. I think that Spider-Man will eclipse this. And that's, nothing else, just because of the name attachment with Spider-Man, right? Even the sometimes crappy, I'll give it that. But most often, at least berated for being less than what they could be, the games that were made by Activision that were quick and just, movie tie-ins or whatever that they did, quick, cheap licensed games were often sold pretty well, regardless of the fact that they weren't necessarily considered by many to be made well. So, let's see. Next up, Shenmue 1 and 2 Collection have officially been priced and dated. It will cost $29.99, which is really good. I was hoping it wouldn't be $40 or even $60.
$15 a pop.
Yep, and release on August 21st for those who want to experience for the first time or again the games before the third game comes out, which we saw earlier that the third game has been pushed back, I think, into late 2019. So we'll see if that holds or not. Deep Silver is also publishing it as well. Following the already surprising sequel to Shaq Fu, and I promise y'all this is the craziest piece of news on this, Shaq Fu's sequel, the new game is receiving a DLC in which players control former President Barack Obama in his own side-scrolling beatdown called Barack Fu, The Adventures of Dirty Barry. I want you to know, I don't care. This is not about the politics at all. This is hilarious. This is really, really ridiculous in terms of an idea. I think it's smart because it'll sell just on the hilarity of the idea and how over the top it is. But go and watch this. Go and watch the trailer for this. It is hilarious. It shows Barack Obama, and it their stylized version of him. It has a voice actor that sounds pretty close enough to make it very funny. And it's just doing the most ridiculous crap. Like he's smoking a cigarette, and there's like a woman in the bed with sheet laying over, and he's like, "Sorry, Mom, I gotta go." It is the most ridiculous thing I have seen in a while. And I actually, they have balls to do this in this climate. Good for them.
Yeah.
Roll with it. Next up, and Sean will be really happy about this, Pokemon-inspired MMO Tim Tim's Kickstarter closed this last week, and the game received 817% of its original goal. It is currently slated for all consoles and PC, with a May 2020 release date being targeted by the developers. If you want to see more, go check out the Kickstarter page. It does look cool. It looks highly derivative, I will give it that, of Pokemon and even some Digimon stuff. I quite literally saw, even if you go to the artwork that's shown, it looks like Agumon or Wargreymon actually. And it's just doesn't mean it's a cool idea. It's an MMO. It's what people have wanted from Pokemon for years. Look at that. Does that not look like Greymon?
Well, that's derivative of Digimon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I mean, it's definitely Digimon-ish, but don't worry, there's a thing that looks kind of like Eevee with some other crap to it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really cool.
So I mean, don't worry, it looks cool, and I think it's cool. Some people are worried. Yeah, some people are worried about lawsuits, I don't think that's going to happen.
This
looks awesome.
Oh yeah, dude, this looks really cool. I don't see how this is going to perform that well, though. I mean, in terms of like,
what's exactly what I want from a Pokemon game, honestly.
Well,
or from a mechanic standpoint, we'll see. But I mean, the way the overworld is working looks awesome. So I mean, if you're a Pokemon fan, check the game out. The Kickstarter's closed, so you won't be able to back it like that. But it still looks really cool.
There was like a pseudo Pokemon clone back on the DS called Spectrobes that was really good. I don't know if you've ever played this game.
Did not.
It was pretty good. I don't know about the sequels, but
who made it? Square?
I do not know. Disney.
Disney, of all people. Wow, it's got a very JRPG look to it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool for what it was.
I mean, Disney wasn't the developer, but they were the publisher, which is still interesting.
I was also like 13 too, I think, or 14 whenever I had my DS.
Just a young lad.
Just a young lad.
Let's see. Fortnite, and this is, God, we talked about it whenever they originally hit this number, but Fortnite has now earned over $300 million in May, breaking over the market. Almost hit when it generated $296 million back in April. That is just ridiculous numbers, and I think it's more interesting. What I want to see is that, first of all, the report said it's probably on the decline, right? Because cell phones and PC are starting to flat out. Most of this, what broke it over this was actually consoles. What I'm curious to see is if any of this crossplay mess at all affected the game in any particular way, from players leaving because of the issue to or what? Because while Sony, of course, will be affected by the few people who are just being very vocal about it, you wonder if anybody would leave Fortnite over it. You would imagine not, but people are also crazy, so anything's possible. I wonder what June's numbers are going to look like after all that went down. They could be even higher. I doubt it. We'll see though. If it breaks 300 million again, I think it hit 318 million. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
That is absolutely nuts,
that's
dude.
Just ridiculous. It's a 7% increase over the previous month. So. Another interesting thing, Todd Howard has stated that while Starfield is being developed to push the potential of next-gen hardware, it doesn't necessarily mean that the game will not be on current-gen systems as well. When they said next-gen, they obviously meant from a hardware perspective, but he goes into it on the interview, he talks about it. They're using next-gen as a catch-all term of what do they imagine next-gen or, the next iteration of an open-world RPG is going to look like. From a gameplay standpoint, from the way the world's going to work and interconnectivity of everything, all the way to what the hardware would be. They're doing this. What's the best way to word this? They're doing this in a way that is aiming for next gen, but may not be next gen. Now, on the other note, he talked about Elder Scrolls 6 and how far away it is. Elder Scrolls 6 is almost undoubtedly going to be exclusively on next gen consoles.
They've never done a cross-gen Elder Scrolls game.
Nope. Well, yeah, actually cross-gen instead of it being a port or a not a port, a remaster or anything like that. Because of course we have Skyrim now on two different consoles. It's a remaster.
I should say cross. Well,
no, it's still, but cross-generation was when a game releases in a very similar window and is not considered a remaster. Kind of like what happened with Assassin's Creed 4 whenever it came out on PS3,
You're right, 360. Like Call of Duty Ghost.
Yeah, exactly.
We've never had Elder Scrolls like that before.
Yeah, never. So it's interesting to see that Starfield may end up that way. He's being very vague. So for their side of things, I get it. They don't want to put any kind of promises. But this tells me two things, right? The game is not near as done as I somewhere in my head had got. I'm not saying that it was a lot done, right? But this makes it sound like maybe they've been working on it for years, but they've been working on it in the background as a secondary team, and that they're just now getting to the point where they're working on it hard, they're doing all these things. But I guess in my mind, the way they came out about it, it seemed like it was like, okay, they're being pretty ballsy. This feels like a 2020 game or even a 2021 game.
Yeah, and
right?
I'm sick of cross-gen games coming out. Like, at that point, if you're making a game, don't let the current gen hold you back if it's going to. And that's historically what we've seen.
And what's also interesting, though, is what we saw with games like Dragon Age Inquisition. And there's actually, if you listen or read Jason Schreier's book that he did about it, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, where he goes over different chapters, they talked about in that thing where originally the cross-gen games happened so heavily at the launch of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One because of the fact that up until the point, you remember all the doom and gloom about consoles was coming out. So everybody thought it was stupid to make a game just for next-gen consoles.
Right.
So what they ended up doing was holding back Dragon Age Origins,
or
Dragon Age Inquisition, in a lot of areas because they were trying to accommodate two different SKUs, or technically four different SKUs, and five if you include PC.
PC, yeah.
So with that being said, it's I think that if anything, the fact that gaming's in a stronger place now than it's ever been, I think that we'll see less of a reliance on
I hope so.
cross-gen. The obvious cross-gen games you'll see, I think, will be
Call of Duty,
any yearly
Battlefield.
release. Probably if there's an Assassin's Creed that year, it'll probably be there. And of course, sports games. I think you'll
Right.
obviously see whatever that year's
And those
FIFA
are
and
games
Madden
I'm
are
typically
launched.
fine with.
Which,
but,
of course, it
big
makes
old
sense.
RPGs that are being held back, delayed, or anything of that nature.
Or
because of
even
it
being held back from a technological standpoint to make sure they continue to run
Yeah.
on old hardware.
is not.
But
not
we'll
worth
see.
It.
So anyway, I thought that was interesting, and the fact that he goes into Elder Scrolls, it was an interesting interview. If you have any kind of weird questions about that, he also talks about Fallout 5 and how Fallout 5 will be story centric, and that 76 is being made so that they can iterate on ideas quicker in an environment that fits for it. I think that makes sense. I think Fallout 76 looks cool, and I'm probably still going to get it and play it. I don't necessarily know that it's what I want, but I'm willing to let them show me that it's something I'm at least loosely want. And let's see, last thing I have on the list is Crash, recently released on Switch and Xbox One, but PS4 Pro has also received an HDR update finally. Thank God. Of course, after I platinum all the games, but I love them. I'll play them again. And they've released another bonus level, completely created by the dev team, unlike Stormy Ascent, which was a remake of a previously cut level from the first game. The new level, titled Future Tense, is free to all players, but must be purchased in the PS Store and downloaded separately. Purchased, of course, just meaning you go to the store and download it and show it. The Future Tense level looks cool. It looks like
Screw
the last
Stormy Ascent. I hate that level,
but the Future Tense level looks like the last world when you're in the future city. I can't actually remember the name of it from Warped right now, but it looks like it's based around that thing, which is cool because, of course, the Stormy Ascent level was designed and cut from the level or from the area of levels where you're climbing up Cortex's tower in the first game. So it's cool that it has a visual tie back, but it's also interesting to think of somebody developing a new Crash Bandicoot level in a game that is so old in the style of that game, which leads me to hope, and I already thought this, that they will make a new game with that same play style, because all this is done. The remaster has proven that at its core, Crash Bandicoot is still a fun game because the gameplay itself is fun no matter how dated anything else gets, right? Because you can always change graphics. You can always change the way that different effects are going on. But what you can't change if you're remaking a game necessarily, if you want it to be true to its fact, you can't change the fact that a game is or isn't fun.
Right.
Sometimes games are fun in their time period,
unless
and they don't hold up from an age-wise.
Glitches holding them back. And
sure, but
it's
I mean,
very rare that's
and while
the case.
Mario is not a game series I particularly love, I still do think that for the most part, Mario 64 is a fun game, even though I don't really love it.
I love it.
But my point being is that I still get why somebody would want to play it today and actually be like, holy crap, this plays well, right? Because not all games you can say that about.
Yeah, and I think it for it being a 3D platformer the way it is, it controls and handles really, really superb. But that was the end of the news, everybody. Now we're going to hop into Reader Mail. So for those that don't know, we post a Reader Mail tweet every Wednesday and Friday when I think about it.
And
this
Josh
last week
does a great job of posting it on Facebook for me where I continuously forget. I promise I'm trying to do better, but thank you, Josh, for taking care of it.
This week for me has been ridiculous. So I got up the Friday tweet on Saturday, and Wednesday was lost in the abyss. So luckily we did have some questions come through, and feel free to keep an eye out. Follow us on Twitter at TriangleSQRD, and anytime these pop up, feel free to ask us a question. Could be personal, could be about anything in the world you want to know about us, and we'll answer it. And if we don't answer in the episode of that week, we're going to put it in Reader Mail, like Brett said earlier. And
again, because we're not quite used to saying it, you can find the Facebook group that is still newly minted relatively. It's Triangle Square to PlayStation Podcast. You can find our group on there. Join it if you're not much of a Twitter person or a Discord person, don't like the idea of quick iterating chat. Just join that because it's easier to have a threaded conversation where you can keep a thought process going and moving along.
And we have a community on PlayStation, and it's dead.
Yeah, to be fair, it's just I don't play along. I got on yesterday whenever I was playing Jotun, but Absolver 2. I started with Absolver, and other Josh, Drago, got on and was like, holy crap, you're online? I was like, yeah, I know, it's rare.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always online, but I'm never playing anything online.
I keep myself hidden most of the time. And sometimes I think they'll change it, sometimes I don't. But we have our very first question given to us by Richard. He says, PlayStation VR, will Sony continue to support it, or is it dead off when the PlayStation 5 comes out? This is actually an interesting question because I think right now what we're seeing with PSVR is just small indie titles kind of popping out here and there when supported.
With some third party, bigger. I mean, because you can't necessarily completely take away the importance and significance of what Bethesda's done with bringing.
Skyrim,
I mean,
VR,
Skyrim,
Doom
the complete
VFR.
experience over, and of course Doom, and then of course they're doing it with VR as a whole market instead of just PSVR. You can also talk about the fact that they did Fallout 4 VR from an entirety, and that still could potentially come to PSVR. I don't know.
Oh, is that
maybe
not on PSVR?
I don't think so.
Wow.
I could be wrong on that. I wouldn't necessarily be interested in playing it, so I'll say that. But still, I think that there is enough third-party support going on with it, and then, of course, a lot of indie games and a lot of cooler games. I mean, there's a lot of games that I look at. I'm like, if I... Definitely now with Grandpa having a stroke, it's harder for me to just be like, okay, I'm going to strap this thing on my head and put these things around my ears where I can't hear anything.
Out of the world.
I can do it after he goes to sleep for the most part. It's just one of those things where I've not played VR in a while actually, and I mean I feel bad about it. But what I want to say on this, Saul, do you want to finish your thoughts?
No, yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. What I think is interesting about it, I don't think it's dead. I don't think it's dead now. I think there's enough proof in that, the fact that it still continues to do well. But this is where I'll say about where it goes in the future. I think that VR has done well enough, specifically for Sony, in this first real generation of it. And Sony is head of the market. They are the head. I mean, they have enough proof to show that there is a market there, and that with more iteration on a hardware standpoint to make it simpler and easier for people to do, having it integrated into your next console to where it's not something where they can cut down the cost on not having to have an external unit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways for them to improve on things.
For me.
About what?
I don't think they should integrate it that way. I think that
is it because of the cost for you, or why?
No, it's because I'm still one of those firm believers, and I don't care what developers say, that VR is a fad. It is not the future of video games. It never will be. It's too inaccessible for multiple kinds of people, hearing, seeing issues, all kinds of things. And then, of course, the cost of it, of a single unit, is what's ridiculous. So I don't want Sony to put something potential in their system that's going to cost them extra production money, extra cost on top of the console, and I'm not.
Well, if it's part of the chip, right? If it's part of the chipset, it really would not be a substantial cost. It'd be easy for them to work on, and it'd be a port that's just there, similar to the port that you have on all the PlayStation 4s.
To my knowledge, though,
that's currently only used for the camera.
And this is coming from a mainly PC guy, but or not PC guy, but in terms of VR. There's really, it's the same thing as what you have with that, except it has an external supply. So as long as the CPU,
what do you mean?
It's all plug and play. There is no little box that comes with the Vive.
Yeah, of course, but that's because a PC is handled differently.
Right. As long as it's something similar to that, I don't want it built in with I don't know, an extra $100 added to the cost or something.
Well, okay, this is what I'll say. So you know how there's no box that comes with the Vive, right?
Right.
Well, this is what you do have to have. You do have to have a graphics card which is set up for VR. If you do not have a VR-ready graphics card, you cannot play VR. If you do not have a VR-ready motherboard, you cannot play VR. I mean,
I think that it just depends on the strength of the graphics card. I think VR-ready is more of a marketing thing.
To an extent, it is. But at the same time, what it comes down to is that you do have things that are obviously like, okay, well, this is built with VR in mind, because VR is something that graphics developers are actually sitting there and going, okay, this has to be thought out to be able to not only just be a strong card, but also be a strong card when you're doubling your images, putting them on two different things.
Even the budget cards have VR ready on them.
And I will say this, I don't know how much of an effect that has on the graphics card processors, developers, right? I don't know how that works. But my point being is that the PC is an entirely different beast because it's already a modular design, right?
I think
consoles are different.
VR is a separate beast to begin with.
VR is, but
I think that Sony should make a good second unit that has 360 cameras and allows you for 360 viewing and turning. And I think that it should come at a well priced. It shouldn't be part of a console at all. And I think that as long as VR is such a small niche community, without a doubt, it is.
I mean, I will agree, but there are some people that are, and I know this from just, I mean, again,
so
this
far,
is people on forums and stuff, right? But
right.
Go ahead and finish up.
I was going to say, so far right now, that most of the VR games that people are praising are literally gimmick games. Not saying they're bad. Like Job Simulator is a fun game, but it's literally a gimmick game. It's you in there doing fun gimmicks to have fun, and it's, like I said, it's fun, it's entertaining.
It's the games you need to get people to hop on early on.
And
of course.
And that's the problem, is that I think the best example of a good VR game done really well other than VR chat, because that game, the social aspects of that game are really cool. But Resident Evil 7,
Yeah,
like, that's
sure.
the only game so far that I've seen of like that actually would be worth buying VR for if more games like that were made.
Sure, and I'll say
unfortunately,
this:
nothing has.
sadly, because
Maybe
of the fact that
Skyrim.
it has. That's what I was going to say. Skyrim. The only thing about Skyrim is that it could be a little. When you're playing it, it's fun. It works well. The only thing that is constantly going through your head while you're playing it is that if it wasn't for the Move, this would be slightly easier to. If there was an analog stick on the Move, right? But these are things they weren't thinking about when they developed the Move. They weren't making it for VR. They were just, and then when they brought it back, they were just trying to make money.
That's
off
why
of
they need to make a really good,
of course,
really well done.
Now all of
second
this will
version.
happen, right? And now, but what I say when you go into putting it in the console is that having one extra box out, when you could work that cost just like the PS Vita, right? The PS Vita and the PS4. They have chips in them that are specifically built for remote play.
Right.
The majority of people will never use that, but the cost to include it on the system chip was so small.
That's streaming though versus VR. VR cost can be quite up there. That's why that whole VR
well,
thing.
but we don't honestly know that. I don't know that. You don't know that. And the only people that do are the people who actually deal with putting the chip in the chipset.
I assume
right?
that if that box broke, it would cost Sony at least $100 for you to be able to buy a new one.
The VR box that I have. I don't think so, because all it is audio processing. There is no extra visual, and of course it splits your video and forces it to.
Isn't it an extra graphics processor in there too?
No, not necessarily. All it's really doing is forcing whatever you're putting into it to split and then double. So games have to run at a minimum of 60 frames per second, and then it forces them up to 120 frames per second for reasons that work with VR. So this is for people who aren't necessarily crazy into VR. This may sound boring to y'all, but I mean VR is handled that. The way Sony did it is to try and make it easy to hit by the restraints that are put by the console itself. The box takes in the 60 frames per second and then splits that and then doubles it to where it goes to 120 frames per second, so that way that you do not get hit with any kind of eye fatigue or any kind of motion sickness that happens from too low of a frame rate.
Right.
That's something that goes on. I don't think the box would cost that much. Part of what costs the box money is extra USB extra HDMI ports, obviously, the box casing itself, which is minimal cost. The majority of the price is specifically in the headset. Now, when you're looking at that, the processing that's in it that we know is in it is audio processing, because the box itself handles 3D audio. That's what the audio goes through, and it tells it which ear to go to when you're turning your head so that it does it accurately. And there are other small processes. I don't think it costs that much. Working that cost in there, the same as a streaming chip, it would be one chip, I would imagine, possibly two with 3D audio, though I think 3D audio will probably be put on the chip generally anyway.
Yeah.
Because there are things that VR introduces that can be worked into gaming in general. I think that it would actually be a plus for gamers to just have a headset on, and all the headset would have some kind of a gyroscope in it, to where if you turn your head, the sound moves with you without even having to have VR in the equation. I think that would work and be a cool way to work the game. Of course, that does tie into the fact that the reason that works so well in VR is the fact that when you turn your head, your line of sight moves with it. You already have technically 3D audio in a game whenever you turn your analog stick, and your field of view determines what you hear from where in a game currently. So I mean,
I don't think
I guess I didn't think about that. But
Yeah.
my point being is that I don't think it would be a substantial cost. It would be something easy to do. It would get rid of one extra box, which is something that people are complaining about. It would cut the cost down on the unit itself, because it's one less thing you have to do when it's already on a system chip, and not having to build a custom case for it, design anything for it, put a power supply into it. It's all built into the chip. And then from there, the obvious thing, this is what I say, when Sony's at the top of a market, yes, there's contest in the market. I mean, there's obviously people who are in the market besides them, but Sony is dominating the market right now, and it would be really unwise of them, in my opinion, to let this be the only thing. I think that it's done well enough that Sony will surely try it one more time, at least, with the most refined version of it you can get, dropping Move support and going towards something, or at least if it's going to be Move Lite, going towards something that's far more advanced than Move, so that they have an experience that's more like the Vive and the Rift. That's basically where I'm going to end it for the time being, because I think that VR's done enough and proved enough, and that people are still... VR's lasted longer than Move has, by far. It really lasted longer than Kinect did. And the only thing you really talk about, and the only thing you talk about when you're comparing this to motion controls, is Wii. The Wii was still a short-lived success if you really think about it. The Wii, once it had its initial sales boost, it just went kind of crazy. It sloped off, and it stopped having so many games that focused on that. So, I mean, I think that we will see them try again, and I think it'd be unwise for them to just leave something on the table like that when they are the head, right? This would be like people saying that handheld gaming is just a fad, and I'm not saying that happened, but this would be like people saying handheld gaming is a fad, and that even though Nintendo were at the forefront of it, right, and that handheld gaming came out, and they go, oh, well, it's just a gimmick, right, whatever this, and I'm not saying that it's completely a great comparison, but Nintendo would have been dumb back when they did the Game Boy to not iterate on that with the Game Boy Color.
I think that all we're seeing on VR, though, for like 90% of the games is all bloatware, though. And that's what makes it a fad to me.
I don't necessarily agree. I think that there are a lot of games that are but I mean, there's also a lot of games that look really good, like Apex Construct or whatever looks really cool. I actually want to get that. There are, of course, the kind of more goofy games that are budgeted priced.
You think about all the games that we read off throughout the drop over the past year, and you think of how many good games came from that are VR. It's like 2. You got.
Now, just to be fair, not just from me having one. I don't buy every VR game because I don't get to, and I don't have enough time to play them necessarily in a way that I would want to. The way I play games, I want to play and sit for a long time. It's just really hard for me to do that with a kid and with my grandpa. Definitely now it's going to be even harder.
But see, for me, even like just based off of like my own play style as well, is like that's not something I would want to jump in and do every single time I play.
And
I
think the other thing is that the games are somewhat limited to what PSVR. So PSVR being the market leader means that it's going to get the majority.
It is not the market leader.
Yes, and sales, dude. The PlayStation VR has sold more than Vive and
I'm
Rift
about
combined.
Software games and stuff.
Yeah, but I'm talking. Okay, how would you say market? I'm trying to think. They have the market share. They have the majority market share of VR. That's the best way to call this, right?
I think the HTC
now, I'm not talking about
from
a hardware leading or whatever, but if you put the Vive and the Rift together, at least the last numbers that I looked at, the PSVR was selling over that combined with the two of them. So when you think about that, God, we've talked about this way more longer than I thought we would.
Let's get.
But we'll finish it up. So my point being, though, with that, most games are going to end up on PlayStation VR, right? Before anywhere else, even. So we're going to get the worst version of them because while PSVR may be the leader, it's also the most budget friendly. It is the one that has the most concessions that have to be made to make it work, and it's got the worst input method of all of them. If Sony were to take their market lead where they have all these games that are trying to be made for it and have a lot of people willing to work with them on it, and VR continues to do good on computer, then what they could do is do everything that they're already doing and just throw that in, and then the games would stop being held back by the limitations of Move, right? Because that is a big deal, and you would get the games that you may actually want, and you get less of these games that are trying to work within the limitations of what VR currently offers with PSVR. You already see bigger games on the Vive and the Rift.
That's what I was going to say. Is that this is where I want to end it? Is that like you already see like the Vive and the Rift how strong they are compared to VR, and you still see the same crap on there too. Not like I said, I'm not hating on VR that much.
Sure, and a lot of stuff
for me.
You know, the thing about Fallout, right? How would Fallout work on PlayStation VR? You assume with the gun controller, but you don't know.
The cinema mode or theater mode way better than what it is. It's really cool, but like get the grain out.
And that has to come from the next evolution in display technology.
That will be why I would.
And that will have to be at least a 1440, if not a 1440p, if not a 4K display in there. That's really what would need to happen. The problem is that when you look at 1080p, 1080p looks great from a distance, right? When you're putting 1080p right up against your face, it's going to look bad, and that's what you're dealing with is a 1080p panel in each eye.
Right.
And when you're thinking about that, you know, going up to even a 1440 would be a big improvement, but going to 4K would be what you really would want.
It costs $700 for the headset.
Who knows?
Alone.
4K is going down in price considerably, but these are also very small OLED panels.
That's true.
So there's a lot of things to say about VR. I didn't think it would be worth that much conversation, but apparently it was. So if you have any thoughts on VR, let me know what they are because I am by far the VR expert. It's just of the two of us, I don't like the most say in what VR is currently.
Yeah.
And that's still, I'm telling you, is not much. I've played far from every VR game on PSVR. I still think it's cool technology, and I think it can go a lot of places. I was willing to adopt early to make sure that hopefully it could do well and extend because I want to see it go one more iteration where it's probably at its best, right?
Right.
So,
next question up, we have our good old friend El Chabib. He says, "Good morning, guys. With House Marquee leaving the arcade arena for now, what do you think the prospect of them succeeding otherwise with their new game? Have companies focusing on one type of genre succeeded when they switch to another genre? Any example than Guerrilla Games? Keep up the great work.
Man, I'm trying to think. What game are they coming out with now that's leaving their arcade style?
I don't know, but like I know that it should be sci-fi in my opinion because Matterfall looked like a really cool game.
And that I wonder if that's the one. I mean,
no, Matterfall came out. Matterfall came out in 2017.
Yeah.
So it's not. Well, it's not Matterfall at all. But in terms of like. What games what companies have done that well, I can't really.
Okay, so I see there's an article on their site that says "End of an era, long live arcade, and now for something completely different," and it's saying that arcade is dead. So my assumption with this is that they are seeing a decline on them making the same style of games. So to survive as a company, they see the need to try and do something differently, probably for monetary reasons as a business, but also creative reasons. It's an added benefit. I don't know. I think it is interesting to see a developer who's been doing something like this so well for so long move away from it. I don't know how it will affect them, but I do think that the only thing you can really look at is, yeah, it's scary to imagine a developer moving away from their style, but LTB, you mentioned specifically Horizon, or you mentioned Guerrilla Games, in that what you meant by that is Horizon is such a huge departure in a lot of ways from Killzone, and we saw it pay off in spades to them. Killzone was a fine selling franchise. Horizon just squandered every bit of what Killzone had managed to build in one game, and that was coming from a team that was not necessarily, when they started developing the game, prepared to make that kind of game. I think smart decisions as well as creative push to do something new and different can do a lot of crazy things, and if this is what Housemarque is doing, and the decisions not only out of fear but also out of a want to do something different, but also it's Housemarque.
I thought it's Housemarque. I've heard so many people pronounce that Housemarque.
Maybe, but I'm just going to call it Housemarque.
Well, the majority of us are wrong. I mean, I agree though that
I'm not saying
that
I'm right
example,
on it.
Horizon, is by far the best example in terms of a developer changing things up and it actually being better.
Because when's the last time? Okay. I guess you could say this to an extent, because it's not completely true, right? I'm trying to think of other developers that are very big and noteworthy that moved away from a specific style in as drastic of a sense of what Horizon was in comparison to Killzone. And it's hard for me to think of one. But I know that there has to be one.
It could be because of either my bad memory or just the how bad of a failure they were. That
maybe, but I mean, because like you try and
think
of it, right? Because Naughty Dog started life as a platforming company.
I guess that's a good one. Yeah,
okay,
Naughty Dog started with Jak and Daxter. So
they started with Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
Then they moved to Jak and Daxter, which is an obvious evolution, right? Yeah. And then through even out that series, it evolved to a point where it was almost more of a GTA clone.
Yeah.
But it still had platforming at the heart of everything. It was there.
3 was bad.
Yeah. 2 was awesome. I actually loved 2.
2 was awesome. 3 was not good.
That said, though, you think about that, and then moving from that, which is kind of action but still platforming, and then you move towards Uncharted,
you're
which
falling
is
out the bottom of a train.
Now, here's the difference, I guess, for Uncharted, right? Uncharted put so much more emphasis on being cinematic and being very movie-like, trying to push the technological envelope in a way that we had not seen them do prior to that. Switching to still, even Uncharted's an obvious evolution of their playstyle, and The Last of Us is an evolution of Uncharted's gameplay.
Yeah, I'm going to go Horizon.
I
think Horizon is by far the best example I can think of, and I think you nailed it on the head. LTV.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I'm curious to see what they do next. I'm not a huge Housemarque fan or Housemarque, whatever it is. I'm not a huge fan of theirs. I mean, I've played a few of their games, I guess. I've known about their work for a long time, but I've just never gotten around to playing them. So good luck to them. That's all I got to say.
So we have our last question of the week, and this is actually leading us into the topic of the show. I think that Mr. Steve over here he always asks us good questions, but I don't think he's ever made a topic. So congratulations, Steve, if this is the first time your question has ever inspired a topic. But he says, which Sony franchises will continue, make a comeback, or go away on PS5? Brett, what franchises are going to continue?
Oh, so this is a weird question. It feels oddly loaded, right? Because there's already games that I feel like we should have seen on this generation that we didn't. That if you would have asked me this question at the end of the PS3 gen, I would have been like, oh, surely. One of those, surprisingly for me, this sounds like a weird question, right? So are we taking the question, how do we say, are we taking the question like, what PS4 franchises, or are we just going to say Sony franchises, right? He's wording it as Sony franchises.
I'm going to word it as Sony franchises.
Okay,
First
so
party.
I think that while we've seen this gen take a lot of games away, I think that we will start to see them in some form or fashion because we've seen Sony see that you can do stuff to a game of a long-running series and make it relevant again with God of War. God of War is also massive, so it made sense for them to take the risk on God of War, but we may see them also take that risk in other routes because we've had a lot of odd things go down recently where we've seen Shadow of the Colossus remake do really well, so there would be reason for them to go off of something like that. Even if you don't want to call it a franchise, you may see Japan Studio team back up in some form or fashion with studio or whatever, Gen Design, and make their next game still may be a PlayStation exclusive. So we consider that Ico, Shadow, and The Last Guardian are kind of like all one thought process to me. So I would consider whatever comes next, as long as it has a similar vibe and feel, to be part of that same thing. So I think that there's a chance that we see whatever Gen Design's working on next be a PlayStation exclusive somehow, some way.
Okay.
And potentially, though,
game.
no one knows, and probably a PS5 game, yeah. That said, I think that we have a chance, not a high one. I will be very honest about that. I think Resistance probably needed a break.
So you think that'll go away, or you think that'll make it come back?
I think it'll come back because it's not hit this generation at all. It hit Vita, but it hit Vita when PS3 was still the console and PS4 wasn't out yet.
Do you think that's one of those things of like how Hope?
I think that so first of all, Resistance, just to kind of talk about why it really went away, it never sold incredibly well anyway. It sold well enough to continue justify making them. But then they tried making Resistance this really big title to be a big pusher for Vita. And they thought, I guess, that they were doing this in a really good way. But instead, they gave it to whatever that freaking developer was called. I can't even think of what it is right now. I used to know their name. I don't even think that they exist anymore. They moved into being a specifically mobile developer. But that said, it's the developer. It starts with an N. But they made that game. And while it was okay, and I really just mean okay, it felt good to play more Resistance, and graphically it was pretty cool for it to be on handheld and still look and feel like Resistance. The online wasn't awful, but it didn't feel like a first-party effort. It was obviously not a first-party effort, and then that same studio came out to make the Call of Duty game that also was received very poorly, and even worse of a game to me than Resistance.
Yeah, I've heard
So
bad
what
things
basically
about that
happened is they put their stock into a really, really bad developer, and what I can only assume was an effort to get the game done quickly and at a low cost to try and hit close to launch, because they wanted to try and give Vita the biggest launch lineup they could to make it succeed.
Right.
They did so much to try and make the Vita succeed, but they did a lot of missteps, right? Uncharted was an obvious winner. That's still, I think, the best-selling game on the system. But when you move off into the other games they did, Wipeout 2048 was actually awesome. You saw them try and bring Zipper Interactive up with their Unit 13, which was trying to live off of SOCOM's life and just did not do it for them. They saw a lot of things coming together where it was like they tried, but they tried in a way that just seemed kind of half-assed and a little half-hearted. And for the most part, it didn't pay off for them until later when they came out with like Killzone and stuff like that. Yeah. But that was not at launch. So I think that Resistance coming out on Vita and bombing the way it did and getting bad reviews, or bad enough reviews for it to be a Resistance game, I think that's what killed it. And I think that Resistance having a break as long as it did, I think it would be cool to see it coming back. And I think that there are enough games that they'd be able to gauge like, okay, well, this is a similar enough game. The interest seems high. There might be a real value to trying to look at it again, give it a weird makeover that feels decidedly Resistance while still being new, and let's try and God of War this series. And I hope that's something that they're actually interested in trying, because I would also like to see the same thing done with Killzone. I don't think we've seen the end of Killzone, so there's another one I think will be coming back. I do think the PS5 will see.
Come back as well.
What's funny is I actually think they may do the same thing with PS5 as they did with PS4, which is use Killzone. Hold on.
Nope.
What, as a launch game?
Yep. As a launch game that is really pretty but no substance.
I disagree with that, but now I'm not saying it's the most substance game.
For every one Killzone fan that says Shadowfall is decent, there's like 10 other Killzone fans that say it's terrible compared to
I don't hear that many Killzone fans say that, but maybe it just depends on where you're looking, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not arguing that, but here's my point about why Killzone came as a PS4 launch game, right? Killzone was a franchise that did well on PlayStation. Obviously, it was a technical showcase, if nothing else.
Two separate consoles.
Well, yeah, Killzone 1 never did great. It did okay.
It,
but Killzone
did
2
to warrant a sequel.
2 and 3 did amazing. And 2 and 3 were really big technical showcases for the PS3. And Shadowfall is a great technical showcase for the PS4. But here's why you choose a game like that, right? It's a first-party game that has enough name recognition to excite people, but is also not expected to sell millions upon millions of consoles, millions upon millions of games, because early days in a console. It's why I don't think Horizon will be a launch game unless they're really ballsy and hoping that Horizon being a launch game, Horizon 2. Because I think Horizon, spoiler, Horizon, not a spoiler for the game, but my next game, I think Horizon will obviously see a comeback. I think everyone knows that. That's not even surprising. But I think it would not be a good launch game. Maybe a launch window game, because two games did this with PS4, right? Infamous, a game series that was always reviewed well but never sold just amazingly. Second Son was a launch window game, right? It sold well enough. It was good. Sucker Punch is now doing their thing, and they are seemingly growing bigger and bigger with every game. Good for them. Killzone came out. These are both games that they were in their mind. I guarantee they were like, well, if we sell 1 million copies of each, we're okay. But you wouldn't make Uncharted 5. Not that that's going to be it, right? I think that Uncharted comes back. I do think that is the series that the newly found studio is working on. We've seen that Uncharted can work without Nathan with The Lost Legacy. But I don't think Uncharted 5 or Uncharted whatever, suffix or whatever you want to put on it, would be a PS5 launch game, because Uncharted has always sold millions upon millions of copies. Doing that at launch is really risky, because of course you run the high, not risk, but you get the possible reward of it being such a great game that people just flock to your system, kind of like what we saw with the Switch and Zelda, and even Mario being a first year title. Both big games that are kind of odd for it to be beginning titles, right? But apparently it worked for them. They were good enough games, reviewed so well, and they were different enough from what people expected that they drove the Switch to be a huge success, and they still sold well. Zelda's attach rate was ridiculous. More people owned Zelda than owned a Switch. That's ridiculous. So, I think that they have that chance. They may be like, screw it, let's just put Uncharted, whatever, or Horizon out as a launch game. I don't think we see it. I think we see it be after a post year 1 game, right? A year 2 game, when there's like 10 to 15 million PlayStations out there, PS5 specifically.
You think it's going to get 15 million in the second year?
I think it'll see a similar trajectory to what we're seeing with PS4 and also Switch.
That's respectable.
I mean, we'll see, because what's the Switch at after more? It's over a year now, but we're like a year and a half, and Switch is at like 20 million.
Yeah, I remember it was like a little more. It was a little more than halfway of what Xbox has sold already.
Yeah, and I think
absolutely
so, around 20, I would imagine. So I don't know exact numbers, but my point being, I think we'll see a similar trajectory as long as Sony doesn't come out and do some kind of crazy Xbox One reveal, which I don't see.
No.
So even 10 million, right? Let's just say end of year 1, 10 million. It's still a respectable number. Then say Horizon 5's coming a year after PlayStation's launch, and there's 10 million copies down. You have potential market to sell 10 million copies of that game, or at least the 5 million that the first game sold.
Yeah, but these games aren't Zelda.
No, I'm not saying they are, but that's why you want to give them the biggest success window you can.
No, yeah, exactly.
So that's why I say I'd say realistically, if there's 10 to 15 million consoles out there and you want to make Horizon 2 come out and do at least as well as the first one did and hopefully push more as the system continues to live, then you wait as long as possible until you have somewhere in the 10 to 15 million range, because then you potentially have a market for 10 million users to buy it, or at least half. I don't think it's crazy to think that Horizon was a big exclusive. A year into the thing, if there's 10 million out there, I don't think it's crazy to think that 50% of PS4 owners would buy Horizon 2.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go quite 50. I'd go maybe like 35 to 40.
Still,
I would guess.
That's 3 to 5 million copies.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Depending on where you're at in the spectrum.
Yeah, Horizon can definitely would make a good comeback.
Yep. God of War, obviously.
God of War, yeah, we already know that's going to come.
So obviously,
Corey's pretty much confirmed that for us. So let's see. What I don't think is going to return is going to be a weird one, but I really don't think that Bloodborne is going to return. I've been wanting a sequel so long now, and
that you feel like it's
I just think
off
that,
the table.
Yeah, I think that what they should have done and what I wanted was a Bloodborne 2 similar to Dark Souls, or even a Bloodborne spiritual successor similar to Dark Souls was to Demon Souls.
Now, I think, though, that will happen. Now, I'm not saying that we'll get a Bloodborne 2. I'm with you on that trail, right?
If I remember correctly, Miyazaki said that as of right now, he's not working on anything related to that series.
Well, so does Miyazaki, out of curiosity, consider Bloodborne to also be an intrinsic part of the Souls series? Or does he...
He said so many times no, But every time he talks about this, he lumps them all together. So at this point, yeah, like kind of.
Hard to say. I still think that there's a chance that if nothing else, Japan Studio have worked with them. I think it may be ballsy, but possible that Japan Studio will try and do their own version of those types of games because they've worked now.
Well, no, not without
twice.
Miyazaki, it would not be good.
We'll see.
No,
I don't
guarantee you it would not be good.
Well,
especially
hold on.
Bloodborne.
But you still think? Well, now I'm not saying it has to be Bloodborne 2, but it can be a Souls-like game.
Nah.
Here's the thing: you're a staunch defender of Dark Souls 2 being a good game, even though Miyazaki was not attached to it in any shape or form.
Oh no, yeah, it's still a bad Souls game, but it's a fantastic game. Like you go back, like after replaying the remaster, it's kind of realigned me again, and it's kind of like 3, 1, 2.
Sure,
2 at the bottom of the barrel.
But you still
it's
like
still
2,
a good
right?
Game. Yeah.
So would you not? I guess that's where I stand on it. Would you not buy?
But you're comparing Bloodborne to 2. You're comparing an absolute masterpiece to something that's already average.
Yeah, but I'm not comparing Bloodborne. I'm saying that if Japan Studio were to come out with their own Souls-like game like Bloodborne was, a spiritual
it's not going to live
successor.
up to Bloodborne, though. That's the thing is
and you're saying it has to?
Oh, for me, yeah. Like it has to.
Okay, I got you. For you.
Yeah, it has
But would you still buy it?
I would be very hesitant. I'd have to wait and see more stuff on it.
Okay. Because I think it's a possibility, right? Definitely now that we're seeing do this move towards publishing with Activision and all these weird things. It's a very odd move.
It is very odd.
They're skyrocketing apparently because working with Activision seems to be like a good and bad thing.
I mean, Western company for them to publish, I guess. But
odd.
Yeah, Bloodborne it certainly is something I don't really see coming back. I don't see Witcher series coming back at all.
Well, that's not a Sony IP.
Oh yeah, I guess we're doing right. We're doing Sony. So let's see here.
I don't think that I really do honestly believe we've seen the end of Siphon Filter. People kept talking about it, but I don't think
who developed Siphon Filter again?
Ben Days Gone Studio.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: I don't necessarily.
I don't think we'll see Ben come back for PS5.
Well, okay. Oh, I think we'll see Ben come back potentially.
I don't. I don't think Days Gone's going to sell that well.
But I don't think Sony will close them. They've been a reliable studio for countless other reasons.
They may not close them. I should say we won't see Days Gone back as a franchise.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think Days Gone becomes a franchise.
I don't think Days Gone's going to last that long. And honestly, I don't see Last of Us coming back because after the second one, I would be hard-pressed to see them do a... I'm already having...
Sales is going to have to be the thing,
no,
right?
I don't care about sales.
For Sony, though, it matters.
No, yeah. And
if whether or not Last of Us comes back will hinge very heavily on whether or not The Last of Us 2 does anything close to the first one's numbers, which I assume it will.
I've heard a lot of people say that Uncharted should have ended at 3 instead of 4. Like 4 shouldn't have really been made. I don't really have a sail on that boat because I've played through 1, 2, and 3 and got halfway through 3. Maybe not halfway, but either way, to me that wasn't a series that I could call that judgment in. But like The Last of Us, I'm already really iffy about 2. There is some major qualms that I need to be like fixed with in terms of like, where's Joel? Why are we like is he dead? Is he a side character at this point? Like they took away the character we grew with, along with Ellie, and then he's either gone, dead, or he's sick, and it's just kind of like. Now I don't agree with that, and I had this conversation the other day, but it's possible. If Joel is literally entirely sitting in a base somewhere and Ellie's doing something on her own without Joel, I'm gonna put it down. I'm not gonna play it. So. This is what I'll say on it because I get where you're coming from. I don't think that we've seen enough, and I think they're specifically being coy about this on purpose because a number of things. There's been talk about them potentially having an agenda that very well could be part of what this is. That was a very interesting video. I don't know how much of it. I mean, it's hard to say you don't believe it because Neil said it. Has in a way confirmed it, but is it a good or a bad thing? I guess is where it hinges on. So let's say thing that we've said where Neil says there's an agenda. Does it matter? Is it a good or a bad thing? That's where everybody's opinion differs. But on that, my point being that so if part of it is that he's still trying to push an agenda with this, fine, whatever that may be the way he's framing the game. Even if the final game doesn't come out with that, right? It just may not come out right to us. Because, we've said that before. We said that there's a number of things. Because people already had problems with the fact that Ellie was a lesbian in the Left Behind DLC. Some people did, right? In terms of people who are outside looking in going, well, why are they making a whatever? Why are they projecting these social justice warrior things? Whatever. All that mess, right, onto this. But here's the thing. If you play Left Behind, it doesn't feel weird in Left Behind at all. It's a very small section of otherwise large. That's what they did so good is that, and this is what I always tell people about things. It's like, if you want to make a form of media, of art, excuse me, I got the hiccups for no reason, and you want to put your, I hate saying the word agenda, but if you want to put your thoughts, your processes, your opinions, your political opinions and stuff in these games, if you do a good enough job that tells the story properly, then fine. If you do a bad enough job and you put the stuff in to shoehorn this stuff in, then that's where I'm done with your game.
That's where I stand on 2.
If it feels shoehorned,
that's where I stand on 2.
Done.
That's what I was saying.
Then that's why
I have no problem that he's wanting to do this, right?
If he made Ellie the main character just to make Ellie the main character and Joel's hanging out somewhere, I'm not going to play it. I will literally put it right back down.
Yeah,
because I care about Joel. I bonded as Joel.
I would have to play it to know for a fact that he's not in the game for some crazy reason.
No, I'm saying
you know what I mean?
If you open up and you're Ellie playing and there's Joel just standing over there, you talk to him and he's like, "Go on, kiddo." And I'm like, "Nope, done."
First of all, I don't believe that for a number of reasons.
No,
right?
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm
not saying that's what's in the game. But I will put the game down because I bonded with Ellie as Joel. So I want to once again at least.
I think it's cool to reverse the role, right? Bond with Joel as Ellie. Get the bonding from an opposite side.
No, it'll be weird. And I'm just saying that
I don't think so.
Not because Joel is a guy, but because you played as Joel in the first game. Like I have this, like, you know, when you play with him and you see Ellie doing things and you're like, okay, this is really cool. Now, if like they take that emotion away from you for no reason.
Couple things. Think about this though. Joel is already probably in his own close to 50, if not 50.
I would say 55.
So in the first game, right?
Yeah.
Now Ellie is at least 10 years older, or you assume about 10 years older at least, right?
I wouldn't go 10 years because she's 11 in the
first game, if I'm not mistaken.
I would say like 7. No, yeah, she's a little bit older.
But we're saying at least, right? Let's just put a number of, let's just say she's 20. That's 9 years. Let's just say 10 years. Let's say he's 65. First of all, changing the things on his head, there's a lot of ways they could do it, right? They could be making it Ellie because Ellie is now physically more capable as she's grown and Joel continues to wither.
But there has to be a send-off there.
Well, sure, but here's the thing.
That's my point.
So do you remember in the first game, and this isn't a huge thing as a spoiler, but in the first game there is a section where you play as Ellie. And I don't think that's a spoiler. I thought that was a really cool switch up.
It's done
There's
really
a lot
well
of there's a lot of cool
happening.
things they do mechanically.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff from the story reason. They can do that. They already showed me that I can play as Ellie and enjoy it.
Right.
So I can play as Ellie and enjoy it in this one. And there's a number of ways, right? How do we know that in this game there's not going to be a part where something happens and Joel is having to come after Ellie?
That's what I've been saying.
Everything is possible.
That's what I've been saying though. Like that's what I've been saying is if Joe is sitting over there in the corner and like there's no real interaction, if there's no real story, no real cause for me to be playing as Ellie, I'm not gonna like it because the whole thing about when you go back and play as Ellie in the very first game when it transitions,
there is a reason.
There is a very strong, meaningful reason on what you're doing.
But I'll also say just because they're wanting to change protagonist to another, I don't care at all. I think that's cool. I've already seen it with, I thought Chloe was a cool protagonist actually in the Lost Legacy. Thought it was actually pretty good. I like Chloe from the previous games.
Uncharted. DLC,
yeah, Uncharted, sorry.
Yeah.
And I also like the Darksiders games because they weren't afraid to change the protagonist completely in 2. I mean, and 3 is going to see you moving into a Fury. I think changing protagonist is fine. It all comes down to what you want. And I think as a personal want, I get it. But I don't think that you can necessarily chastise the company for it. That said,
I'm not doing so. I should make that very clear.
Yeah, where Last of Us comes back on PS5 or not is going to come down to how well it sells on PS4.
I see, and
because if it sells even the same as the first game did, which is literally monstrous, they'll come back. Because that's why we're not seeing Uncharted truly go away, because it's too big from a business perspective.
Stretching it out, and it's getting worse and worse.
And if it does the same thing that Halo's done, which is start doing a really downward climb, a downward.
It took Halo what most people would say would be 5 games to get to that downward climb. Because everybody says pretty much that Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, Reach are all games, and you get that side of like, well, multiplayer sucks in this one, campaign's better. Like, regardless, it has something for someone.
Sure.
I think Uncharted has done that, obviously, of 1 being great, 2 being the best, 3 being great again, and then 4 just kind of being from what I've seen and heard. What's
funny though, from that, obviously these people who feel this way are not voting with their wallet or whatever, because Uncharted 4 is still the best-selling Uncharted game. Which
Don't
is,
forget,
again, you come down to these.
It did get bundled for free.
Oh,
with a lot of PlayStations.
Yeah, but also later. I mean,
I know, but still, it's all calculated.
It all comes down to I'll get all this, but it still sold the best, and no matter how you cut it, it sold the best by a large margin.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to a business decision. Sony as a business would be really dumb if they can still continue to make a studio that can put out what they consider to be a very quality game. Then it's like I use the analogy with bands all the time, right? Seven Dust continues to put out new albums. They're no longer pushing any envelopes, but all of their albums are kind of continuing to kind of iterate off the style of writing they did back with Cold Day Memory, and that's fine with me. They're a very old band. If they can find a way to continue doing what they're doing in a way that I still can listen to and go, this is cool, it will never ring with me the same way as the original did, but I'm enjoying every time it comes out.
Exactly.
If they can find a way to do that to where if the games have a constant bar of quality that they're never falling under, vendor. It doesn't matter if they're pushing an envelope anymore in the same way. As long as
It's
they can
still
continue to
enjoyable.
be good, then Sony has an easy way to make millions upon millions,
And
so they
see-
can continue to fund more risky projects.
and
I
that's-
think that that's worthy.
And I think that's my problem with The Last of Us is that like it's almost what people had problems with the Dark Knight series, in which the Dark Knight was such a pinnacle of that series
That Dark Knight Rises would have automatically had to have been a worse movie, a lesser movie, I guess is the word to
and
use.
that's my thing, is that like The Last of Us is just one of those top games that in my mind there's never been a game that has made me like cry, laugh, and just want to explore the way it did its world and listen to every single piece of dialogue with headphones on the first time I played it, and actually like when those little chat pop-ups with Ellie would happen, and
you want to walk over and talk to him,
talk to her and figure out the world, and then replaying certain segments of the games, try to different things. That's my thing, is that they did it so right or so well the first time
that you get the sophomore slump.
That you get that I'm gonna go back into this game expecting something on that grand of scale, and it's very possible that because of gameplay, hopefully not because of like personal, political, whatever you want to call it, reasons, that this game may see a turn. And for me, like I said, I don't care what you put in your game. I don't care if a character is gay. I don't care if she's a girl. I don't care if he's trans. I don't care. If your game is good, it's good. But if you go out of your way to make sure that things know and happen and it shoves it in your face every 5 seconds, then it's just bad writing. And that goes for any minority. That goes for anything in the world.
Sure. And the last two things we'll say about The Last of Us, or I'll say about The Last of Us, and we can move on because there's other franchises I still want to talk about.
Let's get that done.
The last two things I want to say, though, is that I'm with you on the story thing about the way you write. I think that I've already mentioned it before. Games are inherently political. They just are because people are inherently political, because almost everything is politicized to some degree. It's just the way we are. Everybody has their own thoughts and feelings on every issue, even if they don't care to be involved in it. They still have their own thoughts on it. So the thing that artists always do is that they work those thoughts and ideas and thought process into games, but they normally do it. This is where I stand. If you're doing it I'm not gonna say inadvertently, but if you're doing it subconsciously, like where it's not happening because you're sitting down with the express intent of going, I'm gonna make this game do this because I think that I have to do this.
Exactly.
If you just write a story because it's the story that's in your head and that you're pushing for, and I hope that that's what Uncharted is.
I do too.
I hope that's what The Last of Us 2 is.
Oh yeah, I didn't catch that.
But still, I hope that's what it is. I hope it's just Neil going, okay, but he's technically already said otherwise, but as long as he's letting these things flow out.
I mean, as long as it's not pushed in my face. As long as it's like.
There's a number of ways to do it. I mean, people say, well, politics shouldn't be games at all. Well, BioShock without politics is a bland game. Politics completely control the entirety of why BioShock exists. The whole world of Rapture exists because of politics.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you were talking about.
But politics in the game. And here's political themes. I get what you're saying, but now those are fine too. But politics in general, right, of any sports, because there's people that are like, well, okay, well, the city of Rapture is all communistic, idealistic dream worlds that just cannot work that we know. And you don't have to agree with those to look and be like, well, this is a cool world that's created by those political statements. It's interesting. So games are inherently political. They just are what they are. People have their own biases and their own opinions that they work into their stuff. But as long as you're doing it subconsciously and inadvertently, and you're not doing it because you're sitting down with the express intent to try and do something, I honestly don't care. Even if you are sitting down with that express intent, if you can do it in a way that's subtle and doesn't beat me over the head, I'm fine.
The second it beats me over the head, I'm done.
So I mean,
and that goes for anything, honestly, like movies, YouTube creators, anything like that, like
any form of media. And like I said, every form of media has it, and that doesn't mean I'm going to bash it. I'm just going to, if it gets to a point where I feel it's too much, I won't even have to say. I mean, inherently, we run a podcast, right? So we're going to say our own thoughts about it because that's what we do in the podcast.
Right.
But I'm not going to just go out and create a train to just ram stuff down people's throat and go contact Naughty Dog and say, this, and this. I'm just going to go, well,
just vote your wallet.
It was too much for me. I'm just going to pull back.
Yeah.
And that's and honestly, I'll even tell you, I'm going to buy the game. I know I'm going to buy the game.
You don't agree with Neil, just don't buy the game.
Yeah.
Just tell people don't
buy the game. Or if I buy the game and I don't like it, I'll just quit playing the game. And that's it. It is what it is.
That's the big problem, I think, with hate mobs. But go ahead with your, because I think that between Naughty Dog, or not Naughty Dog, The Last of Us.
The second thing about The Last of Us, just to get it out of the way, because it's very quick, is that you were talking about the sophomore slump potential, definitely when you're dealing with characters you already know and love.
Right.
Do you remember after The Last of Us came out and was received so positively and sold so incredibly well, there was actually statements from Neil that the next Last of Us game would most likely at the time he did not want to include Joel and Ellie in it because of the fact
Yeah.
that it would
That would have been fine too if it was somewhere else in the universe, because you know
I
what?
agree.
I'm not going back to that familiarity that is Joel and Ellie.
and you're coming in with an already open mind because it's new people.
And
So
I'm
are
also
willing
kind
to
of
think.
curious about that person they showed off in the trailer, that the buff woman. Like, we haven't seen her yet. Like, I don't know if she's a character. I don't know if she's a bad guy.
I'll say this: I actually like the way they've done all the trailers so far, even the one with the kiss. I don't care because
I did not like the one with the buff woman.
the one with the buff woman. I think it was
confusing. It was
exactly
I did not know what was going
mystery.
on, and
That's
not,
cool to
no,
me.
That was but done very badly.
Yeah,
It
I
was-
disagree,
it did
but that's
not-
okay.
It didn't want me asking questions. I just watched the show. I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like, I didn't want
It
to
had a lot of
know.
questions for me, like who are these people? Who are these Japanese people you presume that are saying these things are the marked ones or whatever they called them? I can't remember what the wording was,
It
but I
didn't
was
give
like,
you a
this
time
is
frame. It didn't give me
interesting.
nothing to like.
Well, yeah,
care
but if they gave you a
about.
time frame, there's a million things that could happen. But still, so moving on, one of the franchises we haven't talked about, and we all know that we feel very different ways about it. Do you still think? Because I honestly am just so much on the bridge. Do you think we see the Order again?
No.
I'm almost with you.
I think
I
that
honestly.
after this, so we have like what 5 months left of this year. I don't think we're gonna see anything related to the Order. If we do not see it within this year, I doubt it'll come back. It'll be too far and out of minds at that point.
The only thing I'll say about this is that I've already said on the previous stuff that
You'll shave your head.
no, that was for this E3.
No, partner. That goes across all time.
Okay, then as soon as there's a Bloodborne 2, son.
No. It wasn't Bloodborne 2 with me. It was Death Stranding as PT.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. So
We
if
all
that
know-
happens,
well, we don't know that's not going to happen now.
that's true. Okay, so that said, though, I've already talked about the significance of choosing specific games that act as really good console openers. I think if the Order does come back, the smartest way to do it is to do it as a PS5 launch title.
Yep.
Because we already know
I can see that, actually.
they can show a technical showcase. We already know the Order's still beautiful today.
Oh yeah, it's
so
still one
if
of the
you
best
if
looking
you
PS5
let them
or 4 games.
if you let them iterate on that engine as a PS5 launch title, it can be a really great graphical showcase to show what the system's capable of.
No, because I think that's where they strayed too close in the first one. I think that's where it became more show than a game.
Sure, but now they're iterating, right? They're not creating from ground up. This is the point of iteration.
They could do that without having it as heavy cinematically detailed that the first one was.
But they can do that far easier because they can run off of a ton of things the first game already built. Before they were having to do that with building all these things.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is that like but there's also
It won't take them as long.
The
of
structure of the game was weird in terms
Sure,
of like slow
there's a number. I get what you're saying.
Picking up objects to look at
presentation
'em.
across gameplay.
Yes.
So
yeah.
and I'm with you. They need to cut the picking things up just to glare at them for
That
more
was
than a second.
ridiculous.
Stupid bad
and
decision.
especially because you had to sit there and do it for like I think it was like 7 seconds.
The only other
to
bad
get the
thing is a
trophy.
couple of The only other thing is a couple of moments where you're walking. There's a cutscene, then you walk for like 2 minutes, and then there's a cutscene. Bad game design.
Yeah,
why ever
Gears
do that?
of War 2 did that, I think it was, and it wasn't like cutscene, but it was like walking at a normal pace and then stopping and talking on your mic in your ear or whatever, and then doing it again. It's like, dude, these people can make such a beautiful game, such a somewhat
With
well-written
one
game.
really dumb decision.
How is your pacing this bad? Like how is it that like you don't know what pacing is and how it can be this bad? Like I forgot. There's another game that was a third-person game that did that too. It may have been the Order that I'm thinking of. But like I just
Probably.
remember walking at a normal speed, then stopping to talk, and then walking, then stopping. I'm just like, stop
Sure.
this.
So that's where I'm getting at with the Order. I think the Order 1887 makes a great PS5 launch game because it could be a graphical showcase easily by just iterating on the series as we already know it, and it can be their chance to try and fix all the problems everybody had with the first
This
one.
is
Right?
this is one of those games too that it needs a spot at PSX for somebody to come out and be like, yeah, this game's going to be 5 hours long. Haha, 40 hours long. Just kidding. Like, you need to make sure that people know that this game is not a repeat of the first one. Because if you don't let them
And
know
you can do that. And
your
you can do that.
marketing would kill that game.
Sure. And I think that Sony has the ability to do that. So I think that's where we stand on that. A couple other ones we haven't talked about. I think with the success of Ratchet and Clank, it's easy to imagine it coming back.
Yeah.
I honestly think that we see it potentially another Ratchet and Clank before the PS4 is even done.
I can see that.
But I could also see it as a PS5 game, not necessarily as a launch game. Sly Cooper, I'm on the fence about. I do think because they're still doing the Sly Cooper show, there's a chance to some shape or form that we see Sly Cooper maybe even gets a similar treatment of Ratchet and Clank where they completely reboot it, but I don't know.
I thought you were talking about go with the show in tandem.
No. But just a completely reboot, and give it, just really focus on polish and everything. I think there's a chance. I also think there's a chance that it's Sly Cooper 5. I just think that the longer you wait between
I wish
iterations,
it was Sly Cooper 5. That'd be cool.
I'd love it because there's so much stuff that 4 left It answered
I
and
don't
then
remember
left
Force ending
unanswered.
that well.
Oh, it's so cool.
I still don't know how Unknown Guy is in Kingdom Hearts 1. I can't think of how that makes sense in canon. It's really bothering me.
Oh, well, it actually makes a lot of sense in canon, but we'll talk about it right before you
It
leave.
might be
It's
because
quick.
I'm sleepy.
It's quick. But let's see. Are there any other big notable franchises
Jack and
that we've
Daxter
not
would be
talked
really
about?
cool to see a comeback.
Oh, yeah, I just
But
don't
I
know.
don't think it's going to... Like, obviously, Naughty Dog's not going to do it. Blue Point would be the... No. Is it Blue Point?
Yeah.
Blue Hole. Okay, Blue Hole did PUBG. Blue Point is the good people.
Yeah.
But I really, really want to know what Blue Point's working on. And what they're working on would determine me saying another franchise, because obviously we'll never see a Metal Gear Solid game again in terms of Kojima, Konami. And even then, if it's Konami, I don't want it because Metal Gear Solid Survive was so bad.
Thinking about any other one-off PlayStation series that they or franchises they did, because in my mind I'm thinking big franchises, right? That's where I'm going. I don't think.
Well, I mean,
I honestly
Rush
don't think we'll see.
Gravity Rush could be a cool comeback. It would never happen.
It would never happen. I don't think Gravity Rush will come back. I think that's actually a pretty.
I think we'll see.
Cut
We'll
and
finally
dry.
see Little Big Planet 4.
Maybe. I
Once
think Little Big
Dreams is
Planet
done.
needs time to go, but yeah, because Sumo Digital did Little Big Planet 3. Fine game.
Yeah, that was.
But it wasn't as good as 1 and 2, but I also
Yeah,
think that there's a lot of
that's why I remember
reasons
the
why it
majority.
wasn't as big. So Little Big Planet may come back. I don't know. I think it may be better just to leave that series because it's a great series, but I think leaving it would be smarter in the long run, at least for a long time. So maybe a PS5 game. I guess that's actually a good way to put it. I don't know though. Skipping a whole generation may even be a good idea. It's a great idea, but you risk running it out to be kind of dry the more you play on it. And Dreams is already going to occupy that space.
Yeah.
So from the same developer. So
Yeah, right. Media Molecule.
let's see. Let's think a PS2 series that they
Was
did.
it first party?
I don't think a lot of them would come back. Most of the PS2 series that were there that had any kind of real promise did come back already.
Yeah.
I can't think of any. There's a couple of potential PS1 RPG series that have had a lot of cry. I don't think that we see a Legend of Dragoon remake or reboot or anything.
Who made
it would
Legend
be
of
cool.
Dragoon? I can't think about that right now.
I think it was Studio Japan. But I honestly don't know.
Was it really?
I mean, it was published by Sony, so I imagine it had to be Studio Japan. But I don't think we see that.
Because I know it wasn't Square. And I know it wasn't...
SIE Japan Studio.
Wow.
That's what I thought. Cool idea. Cool. I mean, I think it would be cool to
Kingsfield
come
would
back.
be a cool comeback.
Not necessarily a Sony franchise, but I guess. I can't think of any other big ones. I know that as soon as we get done with this, I'm gonna be like dumb that I can't. Yeah, it is late. I am tired. Whatever.
Kingdom
it's an excuse,
Hearts,
but it's a real one.
Isn't right. Well,
You
at
know,
this point, we're just going off second party, third parties.
Yeah, and I mean, there's reason to talk about second party exclusives, but most of them that I guess some of them, a lot of them, I'll say if I'm not mentioning them right now, I probably don't think they're coming back. I think Gravity Rush 2 is an easy one to say wouldn't be coming back. I don't think that we see.
I think that was Sony's fault too.
What, Gravity Rush?
Yeah.
Oh, Knack is what I was getting at. I don't think we see Knack again. Knack 2 was pretty much, it was a great game. It was a nail in the coffin. The only reason I could see it coming back is that maybe the games are cheap enough to make and they get enough sales from a family-friendly offering because, there's not a lot of family-friendly offerings on the PlayStation, right, from a first-party standpoint. So if you think about Knack 1, Knack 2, and Ratchet and Clank, and then, of course, Little Big Planet 3 was one, and then Media Molecule when it comes with Dreams. Those will be kind of 5, yeah. Of course, they were really big sellers for kids. That's what a lot of people bought them for.
Wow.
Definitely want to work at GameStop.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, very easy to play, platformer heavy.
I will say though,
that's only 5 games, right? So I mean, you think about the rest of their games. Sony's right now is very known for making very mature games. Having a game that has mass market appeal in a different way, right? Because they have a mass market appeal in an adult sense. But when you think about as an entirety across all age groups, it makes sense to have something like Knack where it's something that kids can play and enjoy and it makes sense for them to do it. But it's also something that I can play as an adult and I can turn it on the hardest mode and have a fun challenge while I'm doing it.
Right.
So I think there's ways. And then, of course, a lot of great writers will write something that makes sense to kids but has more there for adults if they choose to pay attention.
Yeah,
so,
the best kids shows like a lot of the old school cartoons from like the 90s, like Rugrats and Fairly Odd Parents, even though I'm pretty sure that's from 2000s, but whatever. All those
Sure.
like, good shows they have.
I know one. Everybody's Golf. I think Everybody's Golf did well. I think it will come back in some sense, some form. I think that we will see, and again, this is more of a
I forgot I had
in the
that
same
game.
breath. I think that we see Quantic Dream continue to work with Sony. I think there will be definitely after the success of Detroit, there will be another, Quantic Dream style game.
Right.
It probably won't be a sequel to anything. Their stuff doesn't really handle the idea of making a sequel well. So I think that I even have a slight idea that there's a chance that Sony will buy Quantic Dream now.
Yeah.
The reason I was waiting, because I know that Sony hadn't done it yet, right? But Heavy Rain was really successful, but then Beyond really wasn't, and now this one is. So Sony's got 2 of 3 games that are pretty successful.
How would you feel if that was in one of those developers that or teams, I should say, that Phil talks about on the Xbox's stage?
That would have been wild because Xbox turned down Heavy Rain.
Did they really?
Originally, and then Sony said yes, which was also weird at the time that Sony said yes. But I think it was because they were like, crap, PlayStation 3 came out kind of poorly. We need games, and we got to show off. I think Quantic Dream comes back with something of their own that's cool and different, and it would actually be cool to see them slightly try and evolve their gameplay. I think that we may see Supermassive continue to come back with something along the line from a second party standpoint, with something along the line of like Until Dawn. They've already talked about the chances of an Until Dawn 2, which is the idea of, and it's a second party team to be fair.
Oh yeah.
But they've already talked about the idea of there being an Until Dawn 2 that's not a direct sequel, but it's a sequel set to where it's either like in the same world or with the same mindset, right? Yeah. It's like Final Fantasy. And they're not
I don't
all
think
sequels,
they're going to be able to nail that twist that was in the first one.
Who knows, man? That's what I'm saying. So there's a number of games. You really just have to sit and think about what's come this generation, because it's been kind of a massive outpour. Obviously, Gran Turismo comes back. Gran Turismo is an obvious answer.
We don't have to list every one of them.
Why I didn't think about that. Yeah, but I think Infamous, that's the last one. I'll stop it there. I think Infamous has a chance of coming back. It's a series that's ripe for iteration. It's easy. They did choose a slightly weird way by making Delsin a power sponge, because it's hard to think, well, now there makes sense. It makes the most sense to just make Delsin the character in the next one, but I don't think he was a good enough character. So I still think it's a world that's right to just give me a different conduit, tell me their story.
Yeah, and I mean, if told correctly, too, I still need to play Infamous Second Son more. I played like 4 hours of it.
Sure. So that's where I'm going to end it. I think that makes plenty of sense.
Why don't you guys let us know in the comments?
What PlayStation series would you like to come back on PS5? Be it something all the way back to PS1, PS2, whatever. If Sony's had some kind of deal with it, Wipeout, maybe that's something. I think Wipeout will still see live. So
Wipeout
who knows?
Be cool. But
I think that there's plenty to talk about there, and I know there's plenty that we're not thinking of. They're coming to me now that we're kind of closing down, but that's okay.
Sorry for the long, rambly, tired episode. It is quite late here.
That's okay. I have fun with these episodes because I am tired, but they. You talk to a point where you come up with something, you're like, oh yeah, I don't know if I would have thought about that if I wasn't super tired.
That's true. You get that wake. What's it called? Can't think about it.
I don't know. Anyway, this has been Triangle Squared, and oh man, we didn't do lucky episode 68. No, we did we?
I did.
Oh look,
67.
You're on 67. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're on top of it more than I am, so that's good. This has been Triangle Squared. We'll see you next week.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Oh hey, bro, forgot to hit the Discord thing. No, we're still recording.